Welcome to our S&OP Ask the Expert series.
Doug, today's question is, how do I use S&OP to improve my service levels?
Let me provide a little bit of context before I jump into answering that question. There's three main decisions or variables for discussion that should be the outcomes from a good executive S&OP process. First, what is the flow rate that we're setting or the production level we need to run at? Number two, what buffer should we be using to manage the balancing of demand and supply? And number three, what level should we set these buffers at? This question around service levels, I'm going to look at specifically how this deals with setting and managing lead time as a buffer, as lead time directly relates to service levels. Really, it's a question of, are we able to ship the product in the time frame our customer wants it? And probably more importantly, can we actually ship product when we say we would? The first measure, the measure of what the customer wants, is RDSL, or request date service level. And the second one is promise date service level, or PDSL. To be clear, the lead time buffer we're talking about here is the lead time to your customers. And this is sometimes called that customer expected lead time. What is the market expectation between the time an order is placed and the customer gets the product? In some cases, this is set by the market, typically more so in commodity type products. But in other cases, this can also be set up by you as the producer or supplier. Regardless of how this is set, you need to know your lead time to market, the CELT, or customer expected lead time. Knowing this is because this is a necessary buffer, because in many cases it takes more time to produce or deliver your products than what the customer is expected for delivery. So to start with, you need to be specific about the customer expected lead time. For example, do you have the same lead time for all customers and products in a family? Smaller orders for standard products may have a shorter lead time. Larger ones, or ones for a customer configured product, may have a longer lead time. Large customers, such as OEMs that have consistent orders for a small range of part numbers, may be managed with a shorter lead time than your smaller customers that order across an array of products. I'm not giving you the answer as to what you should set these at, but this is a strategic decision that in most cases you can set, as lead time can help you influence where you are in the marketplace. Most successful companies don't try to be all things to all customers, and lead time is a real part of setting that strategy. So, you want to document your strategy and then communicate this across the organization. This includes customer service and master scheduling. Customer service is where promise dates are first typically set. These promise dates should align with your strategy. Master scheduling also needs to know, as they ultimately are the ones that translate the demand into the supply plan at the execution level and set the final priorities. And finally, operations needs to know where you have set these lead times, as this will impact the other buffers that are being set, such as finished goods inventory and manufacturing flexibility. But not only do you need to document and communicate your lead time at the customer group or demand stream level, you actually need to publish it. This means working with your customers and specifically with the buyers in those customers so the right expectations are set. And this really is the role of sales within the organization. Secondly, you need to monitor your CELT, or customer expected lead time. This is an ongoing activity and an important part of S&OP. Start by measuring what actually has been happening. But what I mean by this is measure your booking date versus your ship date by order line item. Measure your book date versus the request date, and measure your book date versus the promise date. Why these three measurements? Well, the first one, book date versus ship date, will measure how you're doing on your operational execution. In other words, you are taking the orders, are you taking the orders and shipping the orders within the lead time? Book date versus request date shows how well the lead time has been communicated to the customer. Are they requesting the orders within the lead time that you published? It'll also give you insight into what the customer expects. And finally, book date versus promise date. This identifies how well you're managing expectations, specifically in customer service and master scheduling. Do you have the processes in place to make sure the right dates are getting assigned? Then, what you want to do is monitor what is currently happening with the orders that haven't been shipped yet. Are you actually set up for success? Lead time, or CELT, translates into backlog or open orders. If your CELT is 2 weeks, you should have close to 2 weeks of open or shippable orders on hand in your backlog. By the way, shippable orders should also include past due backlog in this calculation, as these most likely represent potential shippable orders. If the backlog is greater than about 2 weeks of planned shipping, then your lead time may actually be extending. If your backlog is less than 2 weeks, this may represent a challenge for operations, as they may not have enough backlog in front of them to manage staffing, material procurement, material movement, and production. This means that you should be tracking your bookings or your order inflow, your shipments or your order outflow, and the backlog, which is the float between the inflow and the outflow. This float should correspond roughly to the published lead time. So, how does S&OP help you improve your service levels? Hopefully the picture is becoming clearer for you, because S&OP is the framework within which you will set, communicate, and track your lead time objectives and what is actually happening. There's 3 key ways that S&OP helps. First, the beauty of S&OP is that it's a monthly process. Every month, we get to look back at the actuals from last month and track how we did. We also get a snapshot of where we currently are at in terms of backlog and shipping plan to see where we're headed. Course corrections and realignment can then be done monthly. Secondly, S&OP is at the family level. If we do this well, setting up those families by constraint, and then using demand streams to segment our customers with an eye to segmenting specifically around our go-to-market strategy, which includes setting lead time, then we can track and monitor our lead time and our backlog at this level. And then third, S&OP, effective S&OP, provides this holistic demand plan. This includes bookings, shipments, and backlog. The level of detail provides clear and actionable tracking on the results of your activities and alignment of your plans going forward. It links the service levels directly to the variables that impact your service level. So, by establishing clear and specific lead time objectives by type of customer within a product family, and then setting up your S&OP presentation and metrics to monitor RDSL and PDSL at this levels, and then monitoring and managing your backlog, you're well on your way to using S&OP to improve this important metric and thrilling your customers. I hope you've enjoyed this session. Thanks for watching today's video. Subscribe to our channel for more on implementing S&OP. You can learn more about how DBM can take your process to the next level by visiting our website, www.dbmsys.com. Thank you and take care.